and you mentioned the digitalization of the process.
Yes.
How core has that digital transformation been, and kind of how far are we down that journey? Because I see it within the industry varying levels of progress.
Let's say equipment is one thing. Equipment needs just to run, but it doesn't run if the surrounding is not there. That means it's not only organization, but it's also the data that you're getting out of the machine and what you make out of that. And I think that's key in the end, to connect all the machines with a digital ecosystem, and in that regard, to get the data for your daily shop floor management, to improve processes, to do PDCA processes, to improve your own processes, and then also, I mean, to have a clear picture about your overall equipment efficiency. And if you don't measure it and you don't get data, you can't improve them, right?
You know, the other interesting thing when we look at that ecosystem is it does go outside the factory walls. You have to have digital transformation throughout the supply chain, you know, and visibility up and down the supply chain for the customers. I spoke last week to Peter about this, and we were talking about the initiatives in the supply chain and how you've driven stock down and the inventory and the importance of that. But it's essential that when you think of a connected or intelligent factory, it goes beyond the walls of the factory.
That's completely right, and we are putting a lot of effort in that. So we collect all the data out of the supply chain, out of the stock, what we buy, what is our orders there, when we receive material, how the stock development will be, and not only, I mean, the volume, but also cost-wise. So now, meanwhile, we can predict what our cost position will be in 2 months or 3 months or whatever.
Okay, so when you look at this strategy, you're starting with the requirement to digitally transform. You're thinking of equipment in terms of its specific performance. When you're talking to, or when you're making equipment selection, you're making that for the long term, and you're creating very important strategic partnerships. What are the keys to selecting partners that are going to be, you know, maybe the top placement or the top inspection or the top software supplier to KATEK?
Digital strategy is one of the things, sure. And regarding the fair, you have seen that the manufacturing is, yes, the manufacturers are presenting new hardware, but that's, let's say, nothing rocket science, but most of them they put their focus on the information systems around that. Regarding ASM, they had the strategy to present software solutions for that, and I mean, that's exactly what makes the difference in the end. But nevertheless, if you have the data, it's your job to do the best environment that the equipment works. And honestly speaking, machines are running, they are, let's say, they don't have problems anymore, but you need all the surroundings that works, logistics, shop floor management, and ASMPT processes and all of that. That's much more that you can influence than the machines itself.
Yeah, and you know, I think again, we mentioned earlier that you built a lot of KATEK through acquisition, so you had a varying number of different machines. You mentioned ASMPT. If you look at elevating them from one of the SMT equipment suppliers that you had to maybe the supplier of choice, how are they able to distinguish themselves and get to that position?
We saw in the past that the machines, they were always getting faster. You don't see it from outside, but from generation to generations, the head are turning faster, and the performance is going up, let's say, in some steps more than 20%, and that's essential in the end. And then also what is more essential is the connections to other information systems, of course. Planning systems, and the intelligence of the equipment itself, the digital intelligence.
Jürgen, thanks for talking to me. As I said before, I'm seeing 2024 as this big year of efficiency for the industry, but it feels like KATEK are already a year ahead of that. So continued success on that, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you.